Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Rockwood number 550-10B or 613. This is a Rockwood flush bolt. It's the 550 flush bolt. If you've ever seen a Rockwood flush bolt, it's probably the 555. That's the 1-inch wide manual lever extension flush bolt, 6 3/4 tall, 1-inch wide. This is the 550. This is a far less common flush bolt in the modern era, or this era, than it was 2, 3, maybe 4 decades ago. And what the 550 is, that's different than the 555. The only difference really is that it is 1 1/4 wide. So very commonly you're going to see 1 1/4 wide manual lever extension flush bolts installed in hollow metal doors. 1 1/4 wide. That's the difference. That's the only difference that I can ascertain between this and the 555. 1 1/4, 6 3/4 tall. Okay. It is labeled. It is listed for use on fire-rated doors. It's also labeled. It bears visual evidence of that situation, of that listing, that it has been tested. It says UL. It's got the F symbol on there, the R symbol that's on there as well. Manual listed flush bolt. Okay. You would be able to, under the duress of a fire door audit, contact the manufacturer and have them forward you the documentation, the documentation on file with UL, in order to, you can find that online, frankly, to be able to give that to your fire door assembly inspector, or your authority having jurisdiction. I don't think the assembly inspector is going to necessarily demand it, but they may ask or request it or obtain it themselves, so that to properly verify the integrity of the fire-rated opening. But you're going to see these in older hollow metal doors. I'm thinking 1970s is really where I see these. So when I'm doing flush bolts indoors, they're generally older doors that the client has said, yeah, this is the size of what we're doing. These doors were put in 1977. It's time for a replacement. They thoroughly rusted through. When you replace these, you're probably going to use the 1-inch wide, only because they're so incredibly common, far more typical. If you want the wider face, I don't see any reason not to have it, except that they're going to be less available, I think. And, you know, if the hollow metal door preps for 1,000 flush bolts, there's the one that's 1 1/4, so maybe stick to the current common. But you might be reusing your hardware as well. So, you might say, oh, my flush bolts are fine. There's nothing wrong with those. I'm just going to reuse them. Okay, 1 1/4 wide. So Rockwood is not the only company that makes an 1 1/4, but you'll know it if you encounter in the field a manual lever extension flush bolt that's 1 1/4 wide. Rockwood 550 is probably going to be the solution for that. There is extended description information down below. Lever extension flush bolt. This is a lever, this flip, they're calling that the lever, that allows you to work the back side of this, to throw it, to retract it, throw it and then retract it, or throw it and retract it. This is manual. It is permissible in fire-rated openings per code in a very limited circumstance. Generally, if you have a pair of doors where there is no human occupancy on the interior of the fire enclosure, and really where that's going to come up with is condo building, the mechanical closets, the electrical closets that are on each floor. No one's living in that 6-foot deep, closet, that MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing closet kind of thing. That might be, 8 foot wide. Manual bolts in the inactive doors in that application are permissible, is the bottom line. So that's where your manual bolts will come into play when it's a fire-rated opening. If it's exterior hollow metal doors and it's the back of the factory kind of thing, and you're just more interested, of course, with insulation, sure, manual flush bolts would be great. You're not under the duress of automatic closing and self-latching, which manual bolts don't require, which a fire-rated opening would require in all occupancy applications except that one I just described. If there's no human occupancy, you're probably going to be okay with manual on the inactive door. Available in all of the common finishes that Rockwood can do, your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, your satin polished, oil rubbed bronze, obviously. They can powder coat. You want black on this, they can do a black suede powder coat. They can do a Duranodic or a dark brown powder coat as well. You want antique nickel? I'm sure Rockwood would encourage you to request that. They are great when it comes to special finishes. Not special, but antique nickel, US 15A or 620 on a flush bolt face. Yeah, you can have that. I'm sure Rockwood would quote that. It's going to include a strike and its guide. And this is a single bolt that this client ordered because they only needed to replace the one at the top. And this client specifically has an 8-foot door. So they ordered... the client told me that he thought his top of the door dimension was about 19 inch. And the client wasn't really comfortable in understanding what needed to be measured. Was he... Well, there was a third person involved. Was it measured the top of the door to the top of the prep? Was it the top of the door to the center line? We agreed that, well, because you're not sure and you just want to get this order placed, here's a 24-inch rod. It's going to come with a 12-inch rod. It's typical quarter 20 threaded rod. The concept, as I explained to the client, you're going to determine the top of the door, in this case, or the bottom, top of the door to the center of the faceplate, the center of the 6 3/4, and that's going to be what you call the flush bolt. This is a 12-inch. Nowhere on this rod does it measure 12-inch. That measures 20. You know what? I don't know that it measures 24-inch. No, not at all, because it will accomplish a 24-inch installation. That rod's about 22-inch. Top of the door to the center of the prep, and you would want the longer rods when you have taller doors. 6.8, 7.0, that's going to be a 12-inch, because if I'm 68-inch or if I'm 72-inch from the floor to the center of this, I could reach up and reach 6 foot without trouble, because 6 foot will be right about here on me, right about here, right? So I can easily reach that. You get to an 8-foot door, now you're going to need a step stool. There's no reason for a step stool. Use a longer rod, 9-foot door, whatever size you're doing. It's just a longer rod. This rod length can go on and on and on. You want 30-inch, 36-inch, 42-inch, 48, whatever you want can be done. And the rods can certainly come within the reasonable height of what doors can be manufactured to. So the strike, this is going to be 2 1/4 by 15 16ths. 2 1/4 long, 15 16ths. This is a standard strike prep. It's going to come with a rod guide. This is incredibly important. It's got a D prep in it because the bolt has a D profile to it. That's to prevent the unintentional spinning of the bolt so that it will fall into or otherwise out of the door. When this gets threaded on, this bolt head will move with time. It will turn. So that preparation is going to keep this exactly how it has to go and not permit it to ever come out of its plate. This will be attached to the top or the bottom of the door. That rod guide, don't install it without this. You'll have a problem in a few weeks or months. 2-inch by 1-inch piece of steel. The bolt head is typical for Rockwood for flush bolts. This is going to be 1.5 inches long. If you need a longer bolt head because you have an unusual floor condition, you can order extended length bolt heads. You could simply have a condition where you have a fire rated opening, except that you are not able to, because of the undercut, travel far enough and then engage into the strike an adequate distance to be technically passable for the integrity of a fire rated opening. You can order a longer bolt head. Okay, that would be no problem, and it's not unheard of to do that either. Now, there is the other reference below this video to the 570 dust-proof strike. That is a spring-loaded plunger-style mechanism. That will allow you to throw the bolt into the floor and give you a nice clean finish. That's just a 570, and you can review that in our site. Screws are going to be included for the strike, for the rod guide, for the bolt guide, and the face of the bolt itself. They're combination wood machine threads is what they have. Okay, so you'll be able to put these into a wood or a metal door. Now, there is a link below this video to the product brochure. Let's take a quick look at that. That document is going to allow you to review the 550 flush bolt. And the more common 555. If you're not sure which bolt you need, measure the height, measure the width, order accordingly. It's probably the 555. Now, there's a link to the document called Template. Let's talk about how you're going to install this. Rockwood has gotten really good. They've always been good, but I like their more current version of their templates compared to the old because they're just cleaner in the sense of there's better contrast. It's easier for someone who's not spent years looking at templates to say, oh, okay, I see what needs to happen. So first of all, the 550 is going to be used on metal doors. Can you force this to work in a wood door? You can. It's not the right flush bolt to use in a wood door because of the preparation that's required. What I mean specifically is you've got the bolt that goes in the top or the bottom of the door. You've got the rectangular cavity to fit the bolt into. You need to drill a hole from the top or the bottom of the door to this cavity, and therein lies the problem with installing these on wood doors. They're installed on wood doors in probably tens of millions of installations. They're not to be done by people who don't have the tools or the knowledge on how to prep that, because it requires tools and knowledge on how to prep it. If you're ordering doors, have your factory prep that stuff, or order the flush bolts that are intended for wood doors, which would be a Rockwood, maybe a Rockwood 557. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, I was right. Okay, the old noodle works. So a Rockwood 557 would be a wood door style lever extension flush bolt. That's good because it fits right into the corner of the door. And all you have to do is really mortise a corner of the door. You don't have to drill an exotic hole through the door. The problem with the 557 is that if you've got an 8-foot door, you're going to need a step stool if you're not a professional basketball player. So people will use lever extension in wood doors because of the height that they're contending with. If you were to put this into a wood door, simply stated, you're going to prep your cavity in the door, and then you need to drill from the edge of the door with like an 18-inch bit through that door into the cavity, and you have to drill it straight. The problem with drilling it straight is you've got different densities of material that you're drilling through, and typically you've got the dense style, which could be solid lumber. It could be. Then you've got the core, and you could have a void here. You could have a bonded core, but the density difference between the core, which could be particle board or mineral core, and the dense style is substantial. That bit just wants to, what does it want to do? It's going to go for the easy stuff, right down. It's brutal to drill that hole. They do make a fixture that we can sell you for clamping on the door, an 18-inch bit. You know, you can, I've done it literally hundreds of times. Every once in a while you have a real dandy of a installation because of the extreme density difference, and you just can't drill it straight. To be avoided. When manufacturers make their doors, they are routing the backside of their stiles when they're laying the doors up, is how they're doing it. Preparation of this in a steel door, that's going to be simple in the sense of your door is already prepped, but you would need to make there's two preparations. Whether it's steel, well, if it's a steel door, you're going to prep the edge of your steel door 1.25 inches by 6 3/4. Go a 32nd heavy on that. Then you're going to have your two reinforcing tabs that you're going to weld in, or have welded in, down here and down here, so that that are drilled and tapped, that have this particular offset in them. Okay, you'll drill a couple of holes in the edge of your door, drill a couple of holes in the edge of the door here, attach the plates to the flush bolt itself, and we would use a bolt in the shop that was we wouldn't use the final product. We would use one that's used in the shop. We would hold that up tight to the door, and then we would plug weld those holes to the tabs, remove the screws, pull the bolt out. We're good. Okay, so that's how you can do it. That's how we would do it in the shop. Real easy stuff. If you're doing it in a wood door, you can still do it. you're going to make two preparations, the body prep and then the plate prep. The body prep is clearly indicated at 5 1/4 tall, and didn't I say it was clearly indicated? Oh, no. I know my height of my prep is 5 1/4. They're telling me to make an 1 1/4 mortise wide, and it's 1 3/8 deep. So my body is going to be 5 1/4 tall, 1 3/8 deep, 1 1/4 wide. Okay, I wouldn't make it 1 1/4 wide. That's for sure. Not on this. What I like to do is once you mortise door hardware for doors, you really start to get really good at it, and you kind of know how to cheat the template so that you can make it a better installation. What I mean is this. They want 5 1/4 tall. Do a reality check. After the router, and maybe before the router, the best friend of the carpenter, in my opinion, is the caliper. You can put your caliper on the tool and figure out exactly what you need to prep. They want 5 1/4 tall. Do a reality check first time you're doing it. Yeah, that makes sense. 5 1/4, you could probably make it a little bit smaller. You certainly need to be between the screw holes, and that would certainly be accommodated. They want 1 3/8 deep. I would say there's no problem with that. You could certainly, oh yeah, no, well, you're gonna need about that. You could probably cheat it a little bit shallower, but there's no reason to, in my opinion. But then they're saying 1 1/4. Well, that's the faceplate width. You can see from the back side that you really only have the body of this to contend with. So I would put my caliper on this, and then I would make my body prep, maybe 1/8 of an inch greater than this, so I had a continuous shoulder to rest my hardware on, is what I would do. I wouldn't want to make my body prep the same as my faceplate prep, because that's an area where particulate can escape. I'd be more elegant. I'd give myself a shoulder to rest this on. Then your plate prep is going to be 6 3/4 by 1 1/4 than the thickness of the faceplate, which they've got at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so that's how I would go, but that's how I have always gone about doing it. So that template will give you all the rest of the dimensional properties. But again, they're really intended for hollow metal doors. You've got a hollow metal door and you're going to make this sort of preparation. You're going to need to get in there and probably knock back some insulation. But you shouldn't encounter any other trouble. If you're doing a door with a flush bolt prep, if you're doing a door with an astragal prep, you're going to prep this directly to the astragal. The mounting tab that you use and its offset will have to probably be accounted for, that you're installing it onto a thinner astragal. You might literally have to pound that mounting clip a little flat, and depending on your door construction, there are different door constructions. The old Amwell doors were hemmed over doors like this that had that center seam. The two pans, they would take the steel and they would bend it into a big giant pan. And they'd lay that flat. Then the next sheet would come over and rest on it like this. Well, if you're going to prep into the edge of that door, you've got this huge web of steel to contend with. If it was an old Kiwani VMAX door, well, that's pretty easy, but it's thicker than what you might contend with. If you're dealing with a Seco Regent door, there's less steel on the edge of that door. Or an old Kiwani E-Series door, not that anyone's going to really know that door. But a Seco Regent door is just a single piece of steel back there. So your mounting tab's going to have to be thought about in conjunction with the thickness of the material. But if you're doing an astragal, mount this to the astragal, and then simply hog out the edge of the door, to fit the entire body into. Just prep the edge of the door so all this will sit flat. Your astragal will then be screwed or welded, however it's being attached to the edge of the door. Okay. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Rockwood products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I'm partial to Rockwood, and it's because of their can-do attitude. You want special finishes? If they can do it, they will quote it. If you need special modifications done, the stuff they do, that's fine. Bring it. They'll look at it. You need custom plates done. I've had clients convert from one discontinued type of lock to another lock, but we really needed some custom rectangular plates with lots of holes prepped in it. Rockwood's the outfit. When it comes to regular material like this, why wouldn't you use their regular material when you can draw on them for all the custom capabilities? Good quality people. Prompt, reliable, predictable shipping lead times as well. You can practically set your clock to them. And if it's not leather-wrapped architectural door pulls, you're really looking at 2 weeks on made-to-order material. But then they've got an epic, maybe a 10-page list of stuff that ships much, much quicker. A quick ship sort of scenario. You want those 555s, you need 50 of them shipped out in satin chrome. Those are probably ready to go pretty quick. Any questions on the 550 and a 10B finish or any other Rockwood product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.